Let's just sew whatever. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are making the Erica bowler from Rosa patterns. I'm so excited. To anyone wondering, I did have permission from Alexis to create this pattern, so thank you so much to Alexis for allowing me to create a video for this pattern. I didn't create this pattern. I just worded that really strangely. I love it. I love it so much. These pockets here are so cool. I love how big they are. There's such a statement. You can use like waterproof canvas on this back side if you don't have vinyl, and then you can just have like this great big custom print. We did double-sided handles, and I show you guys how to do that and what to do, what not to do situation. I interfaced it pretty much as directed, other than using waterproof canvas for the lining. So we didn't need to interface any of that. I did a different slip pocket, of course, and then use binding. You guys, I love binding. I love waterproof canvas binding, I should say. So thank you to Lindsay for showing us how to do that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the tutorial. And I can't wait to see if you guys make one too. The link to the pattern is down below, as well as some shopping links. All this hardware is available on my website. Have fun. I did it again where I forgot to mention pricing. So this bag took me about, I would say, 2 hours to sew, and I charge about $60 an hour for sewing. That does not include cutting and interfacing and cost of materials, but that $60 does. Does that make sense? Like, I include all of that within that $60. So I would charge about $120, $135 for this bag. So I hope that helps. If you're using more expensive materials like leather, etc., you want to charge more. And if you don't feel like you're comfortable charging that much for a bag, that's up to you. That's just my estimation. The first thing we're going to start off with for this bag is the crossbody strap. I have full bobbins, so it makes sense to start with the straps first. Get those out of the way. So, got that here, and my hardware. I'm using 1-inch wide hardware and the 1-inch wide wide mouth slide adjuster from my website. These work great for vinyl. So ideally you would have your centers marked out. I'm going to grab some 1/2-inch wide double-sided tape. This is from waywack.com. And you're just going to lay that in the center. If you have a center line, you want this 1/2-inch tape to be laid over, centered over it, so there's some on either side. Okay. And then in the pattern, they have you mark out 1 inch here, 1 inch here, and trim the excess vinyl to reduce the bulk in your pattern. I think that's genius. I'm not going to do it. I don't need to with my machine, but that's totally up to you. Especially if you have a domestic, it would definitely come in handy. Okay, and then we're just going to fold. If you are using a woven fabric for your crossbody strap, you do not need to use double-sided tape. You can just use your iron and go. I'm just pressing one side at a time, and then I'll flip it over. Some vinyls stick better than others, so just be patient. This is called leather tape, I believe, when you go to waywack.com, but I should have a blog post on my website linked down below with links to a lot of the stuff that I use and recommend, and if there's any discount codes or affiliate links, stuff like that. Okay, so just pressing into the center. And then if you want, you can use another piece of double-sided tape. You could use like a 1/4 inch wide double-sided tape along the center of that to help you hold it in place. I just kind of fold it over and go. But right now, here is where you could trim that excess to reduce the bulk, just at a corner on the one side like this. We'll just do it, why not? And that would help reduce the bulk. Especially if you're folding the raw edge down. Anyway. And if you want, you can use an edge guide or something like that. I just hold it and go. I'm using a stitch length of 5. That's what I like on my straps. Second side's always easier. And then I'm going to trim the excess vinyl off my edges. And then you're going to take your 1-inch slide adjuster and bring this around the center bar. And you can add a rivet or a couple lines of stitching if you would like. I just like to do 2 parallel lines. And then I'm gonna grab my lighter and singe the ends of my thread. So now this becomes the wrong side. So you're gonna have the wrong side facing up. You're gonna take your slide adjuster or your snap hook through it and flip this over. I do have a video, like an in-depth crossbody strap tutorial, because then you slide around the top. So you can see how nice that wide mouth slide adjuster is on vinyl. And then you're gonna flip it over so you can see there's the right side. Add your snap hook and then fold this over. And then you can add a couple rivets if you want. Do a box stitch. Okay. And you could pull those through and tie them off if you wanted instead of doing what I'm doing. But there is your crossbody strap fully ready to go. Okay, so now I'm going to be working on the main handles. And for these, I thought it would be super, super fun to do double-sided straps. So I have one piece cut to 24 inches by 2 inches, and then another piece cut to 24 inches by 1.5 inches. And that's so you can kind of see the vinyl from the other side. of my accent fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and just lay my double-sided tape along the center of the main straps, or the contrasting fabric, or the vinyl, whatever. You're going to be doing it to both. It doesn't matter. This is a way for the straps to be a little less bulky if your machine can't handle thicknesses. However, you probably want to find a way to do it without so much double-sided tape. If your machine can't handle thicknesses, it probably can't handle double-sided tape either. Okay, so I've got my double-sided tape in place. And I'm going to peel this off and fold the long raw edges in towards the center. You could also use an iron for this. If you have like a bias tape maker, I think you could probably use that. Obviously not with the double-sided tape, but like with an iron and some woven fabric or something. And then I'll be using 1/4 inch wide double-sided tape to help hold this in place. So lots of double-sided tape if your machine cannot handle it. There is like a Dritz wash away that I think is a little easier for domestic machines to handle if you are looking for double-sided tape. Okay, so there is one, and this is the right side of the strap. So that's going to get laid over top of the vinyl. The reason I decided not to use my iron for this portion is it's such a thin width that using the iron would have been honestly kind of painful with how much heat my iron puts out. I like trying to line this up, and yeah. Double-sided tape is just so much quicker. I believe if you wanted to, you could use a glue stick to kind of help hold it as you go. I've seen people do that. You could maybe use Fabri-Tac, but that might be a little thick. You might see it through the woven fabric. Okay. I apologize if you see the back of my head for this portion. It's hard for me to see that silver tape with the silver marking pencil on the vinyl side. And then you're just gonna lay that down. So this finished should be 1 inch wide, and the other one should be about 1/4 of an inch wide. No, 3/4 of an inch, not 1/4. That wouldn't be great. Oof, really working my finger glutes. Okay, so for these straps, we are going to be sewing down the center. Closer to the center than the edges. So we're going to be top stitching at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So it's not like the normal straps that we're used to. So keep that in mind. Okay, so here's my 1/4 inch wide double-sided tape. And you'll peel that off. I probably could have like peeled it slowly, but then you'll line up one of the edges. You can absolutely use clips to kind of help hold this in place, but I'm just eyeballing placement to center it over the strap. I find the double-sided tape to almost be like a foolproof way to keep everything together while I'm sewing. It's really going to take a lot of concentration for me to not just sew along every edge. Okay, so my stitch length is set to 5, and we're just going to sew at 3/8 of an inch. So I'm following the edge of my foot to the edge of this top fabric, not the vinyl. Because I believe all of her patterns have like a signature handle look to them. That's pretty cool. So we're gonna do it. In the pattern, it tells you like not to backstitch, etc. So if you want to be a bag making wizard and follow the instructions, please do. I don't have the mental patience and energy at the moment to be that involved with everything. And my friend Kayla actually shared a post on Instagram that made me smile. And it was basically like, you do not have to follow a sewing pattern to the T. If you prefer to make something one way, you know, do that. So long as it works with the finished product, you know. And that made me really happy. Because that's kind of my philosophy, at least it has been for bag making. It's like, things don't have to be 100% perfect. Yes, they should be. That's a good idea in a perfect world. But sometimes it's kind of outside of our comfort zone or talent zone. So you can make it how you want. Okay, so there are my straps. And now we're going to make markings as directed in the pattern. I don't know if I should be giving out those markings. So I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm just using my silver marking pencil to mark out the first measurement, like where I need to be sewing. And then I'll mark the other one, because right now my brain would be way too confused to do everything. So that's pretty sad, but that's how I'm feeling. So she says not to backstitch and to be really fancy by pulling your threads in and whatnot, and I love that. I think that's such a cool idea. However, like I said, I just don't have the mental energy. So we're gonna do it the lazy girl way. So you're starting at that longer marking, and you're gonna come around 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Until you get to your other longer marking, which for some reason I just don't see. One of the reasons I'm not super worried about like back stitching, etc. on these handles is because I'm using a thread color that matches really, really well. But if you're not, I would definitely recommend following the instructions. So you can see there's my 2 lines of stitching. And then I'm going to set this one aside. Okay, this one I can see really well. I have never done handles like this as far as adding the stitch lines and then sewing them onto the bag. I always use, you know, hardware, strap connectors, stuff like that. So I think this is really fun. Again, kind of slowly stepping outside my comfort zone. And I think it's good to do that once in a while. Not all the time, because I was just saying how the other thing is outside my comfort zone. And I'm not coming out. You can't make me. All right, so now I'm going to do the other shorter markings. These should be about 1 inch apart. And then we're going to grab our main panels and attach the handles. Super exciting. You definitely want to use a marking pencil that you're not going to be seeing. And since I'm sewing over this silver marking pencil is fine, but just keep in mind that it may not wipe off the fabric. So let's go ahead and change up the view. All right, so we have our main panels here. We're going to fold it in half. And while I have it in half, I'm just going to go ahead and snip my centers. It's not going to hurt. Okay, and then we've got our center line here. We're going to add some double-sided tape to the handles. You're going to want to cut a 5-inch piece of double-sided tape to hold this in place. I'm not doing quite that big because it's still going to hold it. So the reason I'm marking on the vinyl side is because I want the contrast fabric side face up on the bag. So if you're doing something like this, you're going to want whatever fabric you want showing to be on the opposite side of where you tape, so that when we flip it over, ba-bam, contrasting fabric. Ba-bam. Hope you enjoyed that. Okay. Come on. There we go. Alrighty. So we want to come 5 inches up from the bottom and 2.5 inches from the center. Oh, perfect. So 14 inches. There's my center. And there's 5 inches. And there's 1, 2.5 right there. And then repeat that on the other side. So I'm only taking the tape off of one side at a time, just so I can get one side in place and then repeat on the other. Okay. So there's my center and 2.5. There we go. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. I love it so far. Oh, what did I mess up? That one's 4 inches. How freaking hilarious would that have been? So wait, is this one right then? No. Yes. 7. Half. 1, 2. Yes. Oh, goodness. And this is why when you're tired, you just don't step outside of your comfort zone, okay? And there we go. So I moved my ruler out 3.5 inches so that the inside edge is 2.5 inches, 1, 2.5, but it's still that 5 inches up. So now we're good. And we'll repeat that on the other side. If you're worried your double-sided tape isn't going to hold for very long, I would go ahead and just sew that in place now before it shifts. All right, again, we'll go ahead and mark out the centers. super excited to be making this bag. I absolutely love the shape of it. Oh, 1, 2, 3 and a half. Go. I think it's super unique. I love all of the Order Rosa patterns. If you guys have watched my pattern chat videos, you know how I feel about them. They're so classy. I'm so thankful I have a little bit more time now that Dorothy's a little bit older. But yeah. 1, 2, half, 5 inches. I'm also thankful to Alexis, who is allowing me to film a tutorial for it. I always love making new bags, especially when people allow me to film it. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. So if you're watching and listening at this point, feel free to comment down below and just say, thank you, Alexis. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to sew up to that line and back down. Changing the camera angle. One side done. I also love that she designed the pattern so that the straps don't go all the way down, because that's kind of just a waste of materials. So she's been very intentful in the design, so I love that. No need to waste expensive materials, etc. All right, so our handles are all attached. You can go ahead and add a rivet in between the sections between your stitch lines. And then you're gonna add a vinyl overlay that goes over the handles. So what I have done, I mean, this goes quite a bit a ways over the top of the handles, so there's plenty of support. However, I am not a huge fan of this vinyl with a raw edge. So what I did was I added 1/2 inch in height to this pattern piece, so that when I laid it down, it was a finished edge. So you can spray baste or use clips or double-sided tape if you want. Just gonna spray that. Clip it down. And what else is really cool about adding this vinyl overlay is it's going to add more body to your bag. It's going to make the bottom of the bag a little bit stiffer. without having to use foam or another layer of Decaville or anything like that. So, love that. It would be kind of cool, since the outside has slip pockets, it would be kind of neat if you wanted to make this a slip pocket as well. You could totally do that. Or you could add like little divider pen pieces within this little section, you know, whatever you want, have fun with it. So I'm just gonna top stitch this in place. And then I'm gonna go around the outside edge. There is an option to add purse feet. I'm gonna go ahead and skip that. Mostly because I didn't grab purse feet and I just don't feel like it really needs it. Oh, did I not spray that in place? Maybe I sprayed it and didn't put it down. And then at this point, you're going to want to add a nameplate. Well, you're not going to want to. You can add a nameplate if you would like. Nameplate, rivets, etc. And then I'm going to get my strap connectors all together. I love that. I mean, honestly, even without the front pocket, like, that's super cute. But let's go ahead and do those front pockets. So I just roughly cut out my lining, which is waterproof canvas, laid my outer fabric on top, because I'm like, why trim it all down? So just gonna sew around the top edge and then trim, flip it, baste it, and then trim even more. And that's just totally personal preference. Another thing that could be kind of cute is to cut out, like, let's say 3 of these pieces and add one to the lining as a slip pocket. It could be kind of fun, especially if you are making it for someone who does journaling or something like that and they need to have like a big book pocket or something. That could be fun. Right. So I'm going to trim across the top. And then you can use pinking shears, or I'm just going to add some little snips for this section so that they sit nicely. Then I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to use lots of steam to help me hold this seam nice and flat. And then we'll use clips, top stitch, baste around the entire edge, and continue on. So yeah. So then I'm going to top stitch. And you could add like 2 rows of stitching to this top part if you wanted to kind of mimic what you've done on the handles. I think that would be cute. And you want to baste just like 1/8 of an inch from that outer edge. I'll just trim down the excess. I realize like this might not seem like a time saver, but if you are cutting and interfacing a bunch of these or something like that, and you have to cut out this pocket shape X amount of times, it's just quicker to cut out like a rough piece for the lining, and then cut it perfectly to the one, if that makes sense. I think it does. I think you guys get what I'm saying. So then I'm going to lay this in place. If your shapes don't line up perfectly, I would recommend finding the centers and then lining it up so that you know like it's perfectly centered. But look at how cute it is. All right, I'm going to add my nameplate to this one, finish top stitching that one, and then we'll baste it all in place. Okay, so I even got my rivets added. I'm just gonna baste this pocket into place. I think this bag would look really, really cool with piping added. Oh, I don't have the mental energy today for piping, but how cool would it look? Even if you just added it to the top of this pocket or something. I know I haven't even finished this one yet, but how cute would it be just a little bit smaller? Like, oh, it'd be so cute. But anyway, so there are the front panels so far. So now we can go ahead and work on our gusset, and maybe our lining. I'm gonna go ahead and work on the lining just so those main panels are like done. I am changing up the lining a little bit. I decided to do just one big long slip pocket because I'm using the waterproof canvas, and then the zipper pocket included in the pattern is very, very cool. A very fancy technique. We're doing the lazy girl method today. Lazy person method today. Did I say person? No. Okay. So we're going to iron these zippers, add our zipper pulls. I'm going to add a slip pocket and a zipper pocket to the lining pieces. All right. So for the slip pocket first, I have cut this to about 15 inches by 9 inches. So I'm just going to fold over this top edge. And then I'm just going to lay this in place and baste along the edges. This is a pretty deep slip pocket. You could probably make it a little bit shorter if you wanted to. It's going to be up to you. So since I've cut it bigger, I've flipped my project over. And I'm just going to baste along the outside edge. Again, I'm just going to trim off that excess. Why cut it perfectly? Now, if you are looking for a drop-in version of this bag, this video is not it. This could very well be, or no, I'm sorry, a non-binding version. This could easily be that, but we're going to play with binding. We're stepping outside of that comfort zone. Yeah, I'm not going to make that a suction slip pocket just because of the tapering. I'm not into it. But we can go ahead and set these together and baste along the edges. You can use spray basting to hold it all together if you wanted. I'm just going to use these clips. And just 1/8 of an inch from the outer edge. Yeah, there it is. I was like, I can hear that I've run out of bobbin. Where's it at? There we go. Making sure it's still filming. I will change up the camera angle again soon. I apologize. Okay, so there's that side with our slip pocket. And then I'm going to do the zippered pocket. So I'm just going to do this the way I always do it. I'm going to make my 7-inch box on one side of the lining, 1 inch from the top of that zipper pocket piece. So this is different from the pattern, however. Hold, please. However, we're not going to leave the bottom open because you don't need to turn the bag through. So hold that in the center, line this up wherever you want it to go. So the pattern has a zipper facing, and then you attach the zipper to the facing so there's no raw edges showing of the zipper tape. I guess they're not raw, but there's no edges showing for the zipper tape. So totally up to you on how you would like to do that. Leave that up to your interpretation. But if you want a new way of doing it, the pattern has an awesome pictorial for you to look at. Okay, so I'm just going to flip this through, press it, and then we'll add our zipper. So if you're doing this method, you just want to make sure that the cut ends of your zipper tape extend past the seam allowances. And then if your corners kind of start to peek through, just pull them, pull the little triangles back into their place. They won't mind. You know how some people get mad when you like put them in their place? These corners don't feel like it. some people look inside of a zipper pocket apparently. I don't. I mean, like, not that closely, you know. If there's something I need inside of it, yes, I will look inside of it, but for the raw edges of a zipper, it's not really on my to-do list. So then if you want to add like another slip pocket or anything like that, go for it. Now is the time. Make the pockets exactly how you want them to be. I don't really have a preference, so this is how it's going to be. How's it going to be? So clipping it in place. I'm going to trim off my little zipper teeth over here. Make sure you do not cut through your lining. Oh, that was so close. So if your lining is bigger than your exterior at this point, you know, you just kind of trim it down. It looks really good. I'm super in love with these color choices as well. It's bold, but it's fun. Alrighty, look at that. Make sure your zipper pull is into the center so it doesn't get caught in any seam allowance. Make sure you've got most of the edges of your pieces. And now we're ready to work on the gusset. So here's where I need those strap connectors to actually be sewn now. So we've got our exterior and our lining. The exterior is interfaced with Decaville Light. And the top pieces, I don't believe are interfaced with anything. So keep that in mind. I believe with the binding, that really shouldn't be an issue. But if that's not something you are a fan of, you can trace the pattern piece 1/2 inch smaller and cut out Decaville Light to fuse to it. Totally up to you. So I'm gonna grab some double-sided tape. If you don't trust your vinyl, you can interface this with Decaville Light, or you could add some waterproof canvas. I trust this vinyl. Hopefully I don't regret saying that. And she does include measurements if you want to add a 3/4 inch D-ring or a 1 inch D-ring. And basically you're just going to cut it to twice the size of the finished piece. So if you want it to be 3/4 of an inch, you're going to cut it to 1.5. If you want it to be 1 inch, cut it to 2 inches. And then I'm basting along the sides. I'm top stitching, it's not basting. And then I'm going to fold this through and sew it down. And I'm just going to sew through the center and then back down. And now those are prepped. Those were like part of the first step, and you can go ahead and do that then, but meh, it's fine. All right, so at this point, if you wanted to add purse feet, the pattern instructions do say how and when to do that. But we're gonna go ahead and grab our zipper. Make sure it's nicely ironed. You can still see I've got like some puckering there, so I'm gonna fully iron it. And then you're just gonna need for now your lining and exterior of the top portion. All right, so as per usual, I cut my zipper tape way longer than it needs to be. That's how I like it. Don't worry about it. And you're gonna sew your zipper to the straight side. So you can do it face down onto the exterior, or you can do it face up on the lining. Either way, your zipper gets added to both sides. I'm just gonna do it all at once. Living on the edge. If you wanted to make this a non-binding pattern, this is where you would change that up. Same like we do on the Doodlebug mini backpack. But honestly, guys, with waterproof canvas as your binding, it's not so bad. The Lynn Sport mini backpack by Lynn's Handmade has shown me a new way of doing things, and I like it. At least I think I did. All right, so I'm gonna iron this from the lining side, and then we're gonna top stitch on the vinyl. Okay. So I've got it ironed like so, and then you're gonna fold that edge over. You wanna make sure it's nice and flat. If you have an edge roller, you could totally use that to help you. I don't have one, I should probably get one. They seem really cool. Yeah, I'm just pulling and finger pressing. And this is another place where you could add like a second row of stitching to kind of mimic the handles if you wanted to. That would look kind of cool. All right, and then we're just gonna repeat that step on the other side. Make sure you are lining up those panels nicely, edge to edge. Cheek to cheek, so they're lined up. Okay, got it nicely clipped. And if you are looking for these clips, they are available on my website. Or you can, I think they have like regular silver ones at Walmart. They definitely have them at Sally Beauty, which is what I used to use. But these have like a rounded over edge that feel really nice to pull off. Anytime I touch one of the silver ones now, I'm like, ugh. And I wish I were like making that up, but I'm being completely honest with you. They just feel so different, and they're rainbow. So like, come on. Anyway, so I'm gonna iron this flat and then top stitch. Okay, so we've got that ironed, and then we'll fold this over. You really want to make sure that you're pulling that nicely. Okay, so at this point you want to bring your zipper pulls into the bag, and I'm just going to baste all around the edges. Well, I'll just baste along the bottoms for now. I'll trim my extra zipper tape off. I'll keep that. That looks like a zipper. And then I'm going to take my D-ring attachers. Oh, goodness. Crossbody strap connectors. And base that in place as well. There we go. Now we're ready to add that gusset. Is this not zooming by? My goodness. Okay, so we want exterior to the exterior. I'm going to clip that in place. We need something stronger. And then linings to linings, right sides together. And now I'm going to flip this over because we want to kind of follow the edge of that decaville. You're not going to be sewing right next to it. You're going to just follow the seam allowance given in the pattern. But that's kind of working as a guide for me. And then you're going to fold that open and top stitch and add a rivet to reinforce your crossbody strap connector. But do your best not to sew through that decaville, just sew right next to it. Otherwise you're going to have a really weird bulky top seam here that you do not want. And then since we're doing binding and this isn't going to be like hidden, make sure you're trimming down all of your thread. I'm not usually great at doing that because I don't do a lot of bound seams. But I guess I'm going to be changing my tune. Okay, exterior to exterior, line up those raw edges. Make sure that your D-ring is out of the way. See how mine's folded up? No, we don't want that. That's a broken needle. Okay. Lining to lining, exterior to exterior. Okay, at this point, I'm going to put away all my rainbow clips because I didn't need them. Yeah, that's not true. Oh well. Okay, then we're going to fold this down and top stitch through. I would honestly make sure that your pieces are lining up though. Somehow, once before, I think I twisted my lining piece when doing something like this, so make sure everything lays flat and pretty. And then this is, again, another place where you could add that second line of stitching just to kind of add some drama. Okay. So now if you wanted to, you could clip everything together. Just going to kind of start basting. Just like 1/8 of an inch from that outer edge. Don't go too far in, otherwise you're going to see it. And I'm just adding tension as I go. Okay, and then the other side. My waterproof canvas lining is a little bit smaller at the top, It always happens like that for some reason on zippers. I don't know if I'm not pulling enough or what, but it just always seems to happen. So then we're going to mark out centers at the top and the bottom. This bag is ready to be put together. So I'm just adding little snips, not too far. Try not to go past your like basting stitch, just in case. Oh man, anytime I make a tutorial lately, I'm always super anxious. Like, did I misread the pattern? And like, I'm making it totally wrong than what it's supposed to be. Oh, anxiety. So if you have a domestic, this right here, this is pretty darn thick. Especially since I have that waterproof canvas slip pocket. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing your materials. Make sure they're right for your machine. I really don't have a right or wrong as far as front and back when it comes to this gusset. So I'm just going to clip my center a little bit along the bottom and then keep going around the top. Okay. And then make sure your handle comes down and gets clipped to the top. And you really want to make sure that everything lines up nicely. If you need to make tiny little snips in your curves, shouldn't hurt. Oh, ow. It broke in my hand. All right, I've got a bunch of loose threads here. Go ahead and trim those. I have a fever, and the only cure is more clips. And you're going to be using like a 3/8 inch seam allowance at this point because you're adding that binding. So you really don't have a lot you're going to be trimming off or anything like that. If you decided to use piping at this point, just go nice and slow. Because that piping is going to make it even less, I guess, yeah, it would make it less forgiving, honestly. Okay, everything is lining up pretty good. Yeah, if you feel like you need to add snips, do it. There's that, and I'll go ahead and switch up the angle now. Okay, so my stitch length is set to like 4.5. I'm gonna start over here, and I'm just gonna come in a little bit from my basting stitch. You just want to go slow to make sure that you're not making any puckers, anything like that. This is still feels totally weird to me to be adding pipe or binding. I'm like, wait a minute, am I sewing through my lining and my exterior all at once? No, that's not right. And then you can kind of turn things around, make sure that you can't see any of your basting stitches. You can press along that seam, make sure you caught everything. And I can see some of my basting stitch along the bottom here. So I'm just gonna kind of bring my stitching up. I'm gonna start in the seam allowance. And just bring it up a bit. And now I can no longer see it. So perfect. Make sure that you caught the corners of the slip pocket really, really well. Give it a little tug if you can, because that is going to be a point of wear on the bag. So you want to make sure it's nice and stable. Right. And we'll start by lining up our centers on the other side. So make sure that right sides are together. If you need to, you can unzip your zipper before you start this. I don't feel like I really need to. The pulls are really easy to separate with your fingers, so it's not that big of a deal. Make sure you find your center. Did I even mark out the center on this piece? I thought I did. Oh, but I've added like 7 different layers so far, so now I can't find it. All right. I will refold. Couldn't hurt. Better safe than sorry. Yeah, especially since... Oh no, that's right. Okay. Let's see here. So right here, my waterproof canvas is quite a bit wider than my exterior fabric, so I'm just going to trim that down really quick. That's going to mess up my seam allowance. It could make the bag look a little janky, a little weird. I don't know. Is janky an okay word to say? I feel like it's not. I apologize if anyone was offended by that word. I don't know. Make sure you're pushing the handles out of the way. Okay, now we're at the bottom. Center. I feel like there's so many patterns I can try now that have binding because Lindsay has made it possible with waterproof canvas binding. That is a sturdy feeling bag. I love it. All right, so let's do it. I don't know if this will help or not, but it might help me smoosh things out of the way. If you need to, you can use staples to help you kind of hold everything. Just make sure you're removing them before you add your binding. I don't know why I'm so worried about losing these clips. Probably because I'm running low. Oh, I totally forgot to switch the angle again. Crap. Oh well. So since I'm at this angle, you can kind of see that I use this arm quite a bit to help hold bags in place as I'm sewing. So right now I'm able to kind of help turn the bag using my elbow as well. Helping keep things in place. So if you ever have issues with bags, put your elbow in it. Okay. So now if you want, you can turn it right side out, make sure everything looks okay. I'm just gonna kind of check it, especially at the top seams here, to make sure I've caught any basting stitches. Down at the bottom, I'm gonna press my finger along the seam just to make sure there are no holes, gaps, or anything like that, but it feels pretty good. So let's go ahead and get that binding on there. I think I cut like 45 inches. There's 47 inches of binding. So I'm gonna do the same thing from the Linsport backpack where you trim off the excess. I don't know if you actually have to do this, especially if you have an industrial, but that's what we're doing. So whatever. So whatever. Oh my god, she saw it. And then I'm gonna clip it with the gusset facing up so that we can sew it the exact same way. And then just make sure that the bottom side has more binding than the top, if you can. No, it's fine. Probably want to use a darker fabric for your lining than this. I just thought this might help you guys see what I'm doing a bit better. If you need to trim down any excess fabric that's sticking past, it's a good idea Just gonna do this little area really quick. Otherwise my binding, you'll see my basting stitches through. I don't particularly want that. I'm really hoping this was enough waterproof canvas cut, or I will be very sad. Dang it. Okay, it looks close. Crap. Now there is no like bias to waterproof canvas, so you really don't have to worry about cutting it on the bias, you know? So just keep that in mind. Oh, thank goodness. It's enough. Okay, so then you cut that. Again, you can trim it off at a curve. I don't know, or you could also, this is what I was kind of confused by. You can start it unfolded, trim it down, and then fold this one, so that you're not unfolding what you've already folded. And then it's the same direction as you're sewing. So, I mean, do whatever you want. It makes no difference to me. So then you can kind of check from this side that you're catching out of clips. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, let's add that binding, babe. Let's do it. Do it. You don't want to follow the exact edge of the binding. You want to sew at like a 3/8 inch seam allowance. There you go. So you don't have to look at my chin anymore. Okay, and then we're going to check from the other side, make sure we caught all the edges of our binding, and we did. We didn't. Okay, right here, I like barely caught it, and up here. So let's just go over that edge again. Dang it. And then we're gonna add the other side of the binding. Alrighty. Oh, okay, let's do this. So now all that we have to do is just push the bag right side out. Might be easier said than done, but let's hope it looks okay. So I always like to start out with the corners and the bottom. And I'm using my fist to help push. That way you don't break any fingernails or anything like that. Okay. Come on. There we go. And then you just press up against those seams. Again, you can like use your fist, just kind of press along there, and then flip this top edge over. You really want to make sure that you're pressing. It's almost, I mean, it essentially is like reverse piping. So you want that piping detail to be sat in place nicely. And that's her done. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love the shape of it so much. That's a sturdy baby. Sturdy bag. I really don't see any part of it that I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I think if anything, like piping would just really set this bag off in a good way. So there's my gusseted section. I could probably press into that corner just a little bit more, but of course, once you have it full of stuff, it's gonna be even nicer. And then we'll get that crossbody strap attached. And then I feel like a lot of her patterns are like collection, you know what I mean? Like they all have a similar vibe to them. So once you've mastered one, like you've got all of them down, you know what I mean? So I'm so happy with this bag. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're wondering about this exterior fabric, I actually did a video where I designed it, and this is from Spoonflower. It's their recycled canvas, so feel free to check that one out, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!